aware of the US soccer community. If you're in a situation where you're playing a sport, in this case soccer, and they start promising you stuff, and then you keep working towards that goal, and you realize that every time you make a step forward, there's five more steps to do. It's a fata morgana. I don't know what the English word is when you're in the desert and you see stuff and it's not real. That's what US soccer looks like for most athletes. Not for all, and the system is complicated. I want to talk about this, but I want to get one message across, which is the most important message, which is when you're in a situation that just doesn't seem to get you where you want to go, and every time you make those steps, there's five more steps to do, and the people in the community that obviously make money off you, they keep promising you this and promising you that. You got to be careful, and you got to make a change. Quitting is one option. Changing the environment is one, or maybe something in between. I don't have a solution. The purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense of what it feels like to run a hedge fund. So why am I talking about athletics and soccer, and why am I bringing this up? Two reasons. One, it's on top of my head and it's part of my life, and I think as much as this podcast is towards the hedge fund business, it's also about us, because you're going to get a better feel for what it feels like to be in our shoes by understanding what we're going through. This is not a self-improvement podcast. This is certainly not some family problem type solving stuff. So yes, we do have a situation right now in the family. We have a teenager that is in athletics, and unfortunately, it looks like he's part of the U.S. soccer complex. So it is partly about our own experience, but you can translate this very easily towards any kind of situation where you're getting sucked into something that doesn't have the kind of goals that you're promised, or that doesn't allow you to reach those goals, or that doesn't give you the opportunity to improve to the level where you can actually reach those goals. And therefore, this is, I think, very well in line with the purpose of the podcast. This is not a Not Even Wrong podcast. It's July 26, 2023. This is Crendelco. We are down 30 basis points for the day. The market's up 20 basis points. For the year, we are up 128%. The market's up 19.3. We are outperforming by 108.7%. So why am I calling the U.S. soccer complex? It's because in U.S. soccer, there is a bifurcation of society, which is, let's say you go back, you start as a youth soccer player, which is perfectly fine. You're 9, 10 years old, you kick the ball around, and there's nothing wrong with that. After school activity, sports, athleticism, camaraderie, all these things are fine. The older you get, the more serious things become. And at some point, there is this bifurcation into MLS academies, which is the academies of professional Major League Soccer clubs. They are required by Major League Soccer to maintain an academy. So this is not voluntary. If you want to be part of the club, you have to work on youth development. If you're in an academy like that, you are in a situation where you're being admitted to the academy, and pretty much all your expenses are paid. At certain ages, they also take care of your schooling. You are basically being groomed to become a professional player. If you're in that system, I think you're in a situation like almost any other athlete. You're in the top 1% or even less than 1%, top 0.1% of talents. You're being scouted, and you are in a good situation. Maybe there are caveats there too. I'm not qualified to talk about this because we are not in that situation. Unfortunately, we are in the other situation, which is the U.S. soccer complex, which is all the rest. If you want catchphrases, watch the best and play with the rest. In other words, you can watch these MLS academies play amongst each other, and then you are going to play with the rest, which is, if you don't make one of those academies, there's a massive industry of teams, clubs, etc., that make you pay for this, so you have to pay to play. You participate in leagues. Actually, there's even a league that's called MLS Next, where you are actually even playing against those professional academies, but you have to pay for everything. And the average cost after the age of 14 is roughly $25,000 cash out of pocket. This does not include, private classes, driving, the time that you have to put in as a parent, the time that kids lose, the opportunity cost of academic studies, none of that stuff. So it's just cash out of pocket for fees, travel, and all of that kind of stuff. So if you're in the US soccer complex, you are in, I would call, a very, very dangerous situation. Here's what's going on. So let's say you're in a Club A. Club A is not a professional Major League Soccer club. It's not that. So and then there are various types of clubs. There are clubs that, let's say, have professional teams. They play in lower leagues. They also have a youth academy. Or there's clubs, they don't even have a professional league. They just do youth development. They make you pay for, like I said, they make you pay for being part of the club and pay and play and play and all that stuff. Now, what you're trying to achieve as a player is to play in those clubs and hopefully at some point be scouted into the MLS youth academies. Or if you don't make it by the required age, then you hope to make a college team. And I think this is the first big part of the problem. There is NCAA athletics with all its caveats and all its problems that it has already, the stuff that I think all know about, which is the football and the basketball situation, where young athletes are getting sucked into professional type sports without getting paid and all of that stuff. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about something very different, which is, let's say you're a 16-year-old athlete, you don't make it into a professional MLS academy, but you still have aspirations to be recruited into a college program. And the promise there is that maybe you can get into a really prestigious college, such as Stanford or Harvard, through the soccer window. Maybe you can even get some scholarships. This is what the clubs, meaning those clubs that make you pay to play there, promise you. They say, look, we're a very good college recruiting academy. And you as a player then hope that, okay, fine, I'm going to pay $25,000 a year, play at not the highest level, but pretty high level, and then get recruited into the college NCAA complex. And to my experience, that is snake oil. And here's why. If you don't make it into an MLS Youth Academy, chances that you make it into a D1 college, such as, again, let's say the top 30 colleges in the country that play soccer. You have the Northeast, the usual suspects, Ivy League, etc. You have places like Duke, Clemson. You have the West Coast with the UCLAs and the Berkeleys and the Stanfords, UW, and then you have the middle of the country and so on and so forth. There's probably 30 names that you would want to pay and play and suffer and do all that kind of stuff to eventually get recruited into one of those names. Now, the chances that if you're not in an MLS academy to be recruited into one of those D1 colleges, I would say are very slim at best. This is just fact. You can look at the rosters, you can look at anecdotal references, you can look at the recruiting class of 2023, look at the 2022 and so forth, and you can even look at 24 next year and so forth. You will see that the actual numbers are pretty dismal. Now, if you don't make it into a D1 college, right, you might say, well, fine, then how about D2, D3? Yeah, you can make a D2 or a D3 college. Problem there is that you will either go to a college that is incredibly I mean, it's just uninteresting. I don't want to name names here, but it's just below the radar of anybody who has any college aspirations, and it's below the radar of anybody who has any soccer aspirations. In other words, it's completely useless to sacrifice time and money when you're 14, 15, 16, 17 to then go to a college like that. On the D3 side, there is a special situation where you have very prestigious names such as MIT, Caltech, University of Chicago, just to name a few, that actually maintain D3 soccer academies, soccer programs. The problem there is that you will have to be admitted, like everybody else, through the academic process, and then basically go on as a walk-on and play soccer. The level is relatively low. It's not super low. There is still some decent quality, but it's not something you need to really, really train. When I say really train means, let's say you're a 15-year-old athlete, you're 16-year-old, and you put in 20 to 30 hours a week. That's not worth it. You can do 10 hours a week and actually focus on academics and get to a place like Caltech or Chicago, and then go and play D3. So having said all of that, it puts you now in a position, if you're part of let's say you're part of an MLS Next club that plays in MLS Next, but is not an MLS Next academy, so it's just one of those pay-for-play type clubs, that you're actually being sold snake oil, that you're being I would say almost abused, and that there is this carrot put in front of you, which is, look, you just keep at it, because you're gonna get you're opening up your doors to a collegiate soccer career. Not true. Chances that you make it into a prestigious D1 college through soccer, if you're not in an MLS academy, if you're not part of a professional Major League Soccer team's academy, are almost zero. On top of that, let's say in our situation, we're being confronted with even worse. Not just that we're being sold that kind of snake oil, but our team, which has a few, I would say, there's probably 6 or 7 players that actually have MLS level skills, and then the rest is, let's call it borderline. But what's happening is that our club is actually grouping our MLS Next team with the second team, which plays in the lower division called ECNL, and then make them train together. So what's happening here in a nutshell is that the few players, and when I say few again, I mean 6, 7, 8 players, something like that. And then maybe there's another 6 or 7 players. So you have about 14, 15 players that are eligible from a skill perspective to play MLS Next. They are being used as bait for another, let's say 20 to 25 players, so just they can train together. And they're being used as bait again for this other players to be attracted. In other words, our club is maximizing revenue on our shoulders, using our kids to attract others to then keep selling the snake oil of potential academic and NCAA careers and all that kind of stuff. So what do you do in a situation like that? Our strategy so far has been keep your head down and just keep working. And we've been doing that, and we had some success. In other words, our son, who is involved in this whole situation, has had some high-level games, some prestigious achievements, some looks by colleges and professional teams. Unfortunately, nothing has panned out yet, either because professional teams said no to him joining a professional academy, or he's still too young to be recruited to colleges. He's doing ID camps for colleges, and those, by the way, those ID camps on their own are also snake oil. You have to pay to be looked at into an ID camp. Typical ID camps at high-level D1 colleges, they have 100 to 200 people per camp. Each one pays $500, and the chance. They usually take 6 per year, something like that. So you see how the numbers stack up. It's really a losing proposition. Most of the time, the people that actually get recruited are those that are already very high level achievers at the respective MLS Next academies. And if you're not in one of those professional MLS Next academies, in other words, you are in a club where it's pay for play, and on top of that, you're training with, let's say, the second team, your chances are just very, very low. So having said all of that, now what's the problem here and how do you solve it? The problem is you're stuck in a situation where you're being promised A and you can't achieve that A. That goal is not achievable. It's not achievable because on the daily basis, the resources you're given, the time you're given, the dedication by the coaches is just not there. And then it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Miracles happen every now and then. There are natural talents. There are people that, somehow out of nowhere show up and, play, let's say, in a club that is pay for play, and then by the age of 17 get discovered and become superstars. These things happen, but that's not the norm. The norm is that you're being sucked into quicksand. You're being drawn into this never-ending story of promises and chain reactions of, well, you didn't achieve this, but you can do this, and oh, by the way, your weight's not good enough, or your height's not good enough, or you're too slow, or you're too far away from, excuses. And what do you do? Like I said in the prelude, you have really 3 options, which is quit, change the environment, or maybe a mix of those. We are at the point now where we're trying to change the environment. So we're not just putting our head down anymore and just training and work. It's not good enough. We're trying to actively change the environment. So we're trying to, move towards our club, have a change, try to, instill a higher standards of excellence, increase the level of selection. It's very hard because now you're going against the incentives of the club owner who wants to maximize revenue. Now, of course, in the long term, you can say, listen, and this is where our incentives align. If you help us increase our standards and make our kids better off, long term, your name, your reputation will also be better off. But that's not how most people see the world. Most people see the world in the short term. I don't care about long term. I don't care about your actual kids' performance. I just want to keep selling this snake oil. And as long as I have enough suckers that are joining me and paying, I am fine. I mean, just to give you an example, an absurd example, which is there's a tournament in San Diego called the San Diego Surf Cup. The San Diego Surf Cup is a large tournament with, I would say, thousands of kids participating. They all travel from all over the country to go there and play. You have to stay in dedicated hotels that they tell you where to stay. Just to give you a sense, to stay in a very average motel type place costs you $400 to $500 a night, so ridiculous. The tournament quality, I mean, the fields are basically pastures. It's not even real grass, or if it's grass, it doesn't look like it, doesn't smell like it. People get injured all the time because of the bad quality of the grass. The games are, if you go there visually, you get, this is not, Johan Cruyff would turn in his grave if you saw that. You can't call this football or soccer. This is just, passion merchants kicking the ball around and often kicking themselves. I have one example of a friend, of an acquaintance, whose kid got really seriously injured there. Anyway, long story short, our club is going there. We live in Northern California, so it's a trip, a flight, a hotel, all that kind of stuff. The trip costs around $3,000 with fees and everything. And we just refused to go there. We said, we don't want to go there. It's not worth it. The level is low. It's way below where we're promised to play. Let's say we're promised to play MLS Next, and this is 1 or 2 divisions lower than what we're promised to play. We don't want to go there. The coach is threatening our child to, not put him, not put him on the bench, all that kind of stuff, if he doesn't go there. So you're forced to go there, otherwise you get punished. and under the premise that this is a great recruiting event for NCAA colleges. Now, if you look at the list of colleges, they show up, but it's I would say very rarely you would see a prestigious name. It's mainly, third, fourth, fifth degree type colleges, and even those names that show up, the chances that they recruit from there are almost zero. So this is a very, again, it's a sucker situation, and not just that. The San Diego Surf Cup brags that they create hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue for the San Diego area. So on the one hand, they're talking to you about this, phenomenal situation where if you go there, you can, start your career as an NCAA recruit. On the other hand, they're bragging about the kind of money they're making. Clearly, the incentives here are misaligned. This is just one anecdote. There's many more anecdotes I can come up with. To be honest, we feel like suckers. It's a very demeaning feeling. It's humiliating. Our son is very excited. He is a passionate child, like every teenager hopefully is. And his dreams are being shattered one at a time by the lack of commitment, by the hypocrisy, and I would, for lack of a better word, corruption of the adults in this particular sport. And as parents, we can't keep watching this. So what do? We try to change it. Again, quitting is always an option. It's an option that is serious. By just accepting the status quo, you're also making a decision. And if you're in a bad situation, this is a little bit like, it's almost like drugs, right? I mean, I wouldn't equate it yet because I still hope that maybe through a change in the environment, I can make it to the better. But if not, then this turns into basically, it's almost like, supporting the use of narcotics and thinking, well, if he keeps using it, it's still better than if I put him on a turkey by taking it away. Tough decision, but for sure, something has to be done. So to draw the line now to the purpose of this podcast, I think a lot of people, a lot of listeners to the podcast, either you're in the hedge fund business, or maybe I think most of listeners might not even be in the hedge fund business. They're in some sort of job that they're unhappy with, and they're thinking about going on their own. Either start a hedge fund or do something else. So in that sense, you might be in a similar situation where you're in a job that keeps promising you stuff that just make you unhappy, that make you not real, make you not feel real. Maybe just a little anecdote. Our son just the other day told us that he would like to continue until he gets recruited by a college, and then maybe stop playing for a while until he goes to college. And to me, that is the signal. That is the signal. You see, he's losing his passion. So the corruption and hypocrisy of the system have made him lose his passion. And that is, of course, that is the signal. I mean, you don't need to hear more as a parent that something is wrong. So again, we're trying to change the environment now. We're very active. We took off our gloves, so it's not going to be pretty, but it's worth the fight. Quitting, when I say quitting, it just means, look, you're not going to play. You can still play the sport if you want at a lower level as a recreational hobby, but you go focus on school, do other things, do other hobbies, travel, enjoy life, have girlfriends, because you're sacrificing a lot of time and a lot of money for not just no avail. It's negative. Like you're being sucked into a system that doesn't allow you to reach your goals, that doesn't give you the ability to improve, and on top of that forces you to be a bait for other people who are even more suckers than you to keep being abused by the system. So to summarize, situations like this occur, situations where you are in a system that doesn't give you the resources and the environment, and the people in the business are not there to help you improve, but they keep promising you goals. You might see that in athletics. You see that a lot in teenage athletics, particularly in conjunction with the U.S. academic complex, which in my opinion is corrupt. You might also see it in other jobs, many jobs, where they tell you, well, keep doing this, and then you might be able to, get promotions and stuff like that. Be very, very careful. Set yourself goals. And if you don't reach those goals at a certain amount of time, you might fail once or twice. But if that keeps repeating itself, then maybe it's not you. Maybe it's the system that doesn't allow you to reach those goals. You have to make a change. You have to be in a situation where you can continuously reach your goals and then improve. If you can't do that, you're in the wrong business, in the wrong system, the wrong sport, whatever that may be. In that case, quit or change the environment or combine both of them. You will find that. There are always, as everybody has, the 15 Minutes of Fame by Andy Warhol. You can extrapolate that into everybody has a shot at finding a system where they can, finding a place, finding an environment where they can improve, where they actually have a chance to succeed. And if you don't see that in the current environment where you are, then go somewhere else or change the environment. Thank you.